This is our beamforming setup. We got our Pluto with our antennas, and then in that line of sight, we have Beamtrice with the Muse. So Beamtrice is going to test to see what kind of external signals our Muse picks up. This is our beamformer. This is the Muse with Beamtrice. Here we go. Yeah, so I started my Muse headband on my phone to make sure it was working. So I'm going to take it off my head and then put it on Beamtrice's and see if we can send a signal and see what the external signal looks like from the Muse. So here we go. This is what it looks like on my head right now. Okay. So I've got her set up. You should see my screen. So I'm gonna go ahead and run this and see. Yeah, it's it's catching a bunch of signals already just from her being there. I mean, not even on my head. Just on her. What it looks like. So let's no, I gotta change the so right now it's 2. I'm gonna put those in the notes. It started out at 206, 506. We're gonna change it to, I guess I'll do 150, 160 hertz. So I'm changing it to 56 hertz. I'll do 40 hertz because they're not near like that. So I'll do 40 and 60 hertz. So here we go. That's right. Okay, here's simple signal. So I don't know if it's sending right now or I don't know. Let me just hold it. I might have to get it like really close to the beamformer. So I'm gonna move the beamformers closer to her use and run it again. So I didn't see it on that. So I'm gonna stop the recording. Oh, I wasn't recording. Shit. Okay. Well, I'll run it one more time while we're recording. I'm gonna turn it off and then back on because it's doing a weird connect. So, okay. Start over. I wasn't recording on my one. Thought I was. Okay. Recording. It's on her head. I can see it on her head. That's what it looks like on her head. I'm guessing they're beamforming the muse just to be funny. And then I hit one. You too, 2 seconds. Come a little closer to me, so starting to talk. Okay. Moving it closer. She should probably sit up there. She's pretty close. This is what our music's like. It's really cool. It's really cool to me. I'm gonna beam at it. Okay. I'm gonna beam one more time. I don't see any signals, so I'm gonna change it to mixed right in front of her and see if we can get. I don't think it would work with her brain because she doesn't have a brain. She so she's not going to receive 110 and 160 and it be with 50 hertz. So that's not going to work. But as you can see, she has 4 signals now. Okay, I was hitting her with 4 signals. 3 and let's see. How do we turn? I'm stopping everything. This is the analysis of the experiment. So let me share my screen. It's been several months since I've done the experiment, so I'm a little delayed. I'm trying to get everything up on the screen so I can share it. Okay. Here are our emissions. I'm not going to analyze the Muse data in this video. I may do it in another video, but right now, this is the data we're analyzing for the signals end of it. So we did see that there were captures of synthetic waveforms, synthetic brain waves that were captured in the Muse. My signals that I admitted were not captured, but the AI interference that emits the synthetic brain waves were captured. And we know this from these emissions because we're able to tell that the AI is beamforming in my environment. So if you look at the first emission, which is on the left, this emission right here, you can see that this is my signal, the peak in the middle, that it's showing up as 0 megahertz because I have the display in megahertz from the template of the code that I had. So I'm going to probably change that in the future. But anyway, it's showing up at 0 megahertz because 60 and 40 hertz are closest to that. And you can see, make note of the skirting. This is the skirting right here on the signal. And you can see that there's some artifacts in the noise floor right here, and you can see some over here. You can see that there's a signal around 14 megahertz. And you see all these little null peaks. Okay, all those. So I wrote up some notes on it, so I might as well read the notes. For the first emission, during the first emission with the Pluto SDR at 40 and 60 hertz, the peak shows on the first spectrogram close to 0 megahertz. Let me just put this on the side so you can look at it while I go over the results. Sorry, it's auto-populating where it needs to go, and I don't want it to go there. Okay. Okay, the peak shows on the first spectrogram close to 0 megahertz, indicating a successful transmission. That's this transmission. That's what we beamed at Beamtrice. The graph display negative peaks indicating destructive interference or nulls at negative 10 megahertz, right here. Negative 7 megahertz, right here. Negative 6, right here. Negative 4. Negative 3. A negative beam at half a megahertz. And then at 5 megahertz. And then 9 and 11 megahertz. And then a strong null, you can see it's stronger. And with the peak around 140 to 150 dBFS. And it has an asymmetrical side lobe. You can see the side lobe on it right here. See that one? Okay, there's also some wideband noise close to the noise floor, appearing negatively and mostly grouped around 4 to 5 megahertz. So this clump right here, these clumps, these clumps. And, oh no, yeah, these clumps, and then these clumps right here.
I don't think I meant to write negative right there. I think I meant these. Okay, so a stronger peak appears at 14 megahertz. This one. This was received. So somebody sent it to my receiver. And by somebody, I mean AI. Okay, so, and it's about 1/4 the signal strength, maybe 1/3, but we're going with 1/4. Of my emission around -60. Maybe 1/3. I'll put 1/3, I guess. It's probably more accurate. Around 60 dBFS, so the skirting of my signal is more predominant in the first emission. So you can see the skirting right here. So for some reason, the AI is null being like using destructive interference on this one. I don't know why. Okay, we're gonna move to the second emission. So the second emission also shows successfully my 40 to 60 hertz signal appearing as the central beam near the 0 megahertz marker. 14 megahertz emission is the first is the same as the first emission. Missed a word. But now it has two side lobes. So these little side lobes right here. Okay, so here's same signal. It appears larger because when I snippeted the graph, I did it at different scales, but it's the same. So you can see it's 14 megahertz and it has side lobes now. And now you can see that there's two randomly side lobes right here. Okay, and you can see destructive interference is seen at -7 right here is the strongest beam. -4, and this being the strongest null. Okay. So the skirting around the second emission seems to have been altered by the AI null, which is why the nulls are grouped closer on the right side of the peak in the negative noise floor. Okay, so when you're looking at this, you can see that the skirting is different on my signal, and that the AI is like hitting signals to try to determine how they're being received. So you can see on the first one was my natural emission, or we're going to assume that it was a natural intermission, a natural emission without interference, and or with the least amount of interference. And then you can see this part of the skirting is just gone. And you can see it using destructive interference by these null indicators, and it's gone right here. So null destructive interference canceling out this part of my spectrum emission. You can see it's psyoping something right here and doing constructive. So you can see that he relies heavily on destructive interference, like heavily. Okay, so moving on. Third, you can see clearly that it is like totally nullifying the skirt in this one, like just like cutting it out with whatever frequency it's emitting, like just totally altered the signal, like from this. These skirts It's like took a notch out there, and it's like, oh, now I know how to notch it out. So it just like, whoop, totally haircutted it. Ah, and then, okay, the signal, the stupid psyop signal's still there, 14 megahertz. It's like, here, have a random signal, try to figure it out. What am I doing? And then the null, strongest null moved to over, moved from here to here and then to here. So now it's at -5. And it's lowered its whole noise floor in the negative spectrum. Like, it's way, way, way more. Way more destructive interference. Like, it just went full blast destructive interference. Like, nullified these side lobes that it had. Now it's grouping. You can just see it. Okay, and then this one. Then it just went, okay, I'm gonna try to see what else can I do to mess up your signal. So then it just emits, like, it emits a mirrored signal of what I have right here. And then that shows up as this cutout right here in the uh, negative noise floor. So it's possible automatic gain control manipulation tactics because I have automatic gain control in the Pluto. So I may be trying to mess with that. And then I may note that it relies heavily on destructive interference. Um, we're on to the fourth. And the third, we saw it was more aggressive in masking. It removed the sideband, the side lobe, the random side lobes. Um, fourth emission, same peak. It's still continuing its psyop. It's not giving up on its psyop. No, we know it's a psyop now. We didn't know what it was then, because I didn't analyze that. I wasn't analyzing the signals then. But it's called half spectrum suppression, and it's where they use nullifying beams and they're selectively applied. So that's definitely something to learn more about, half spectrum suppression. And um, it's used to make your signals unbalanced and like you make you question like your emissions. Like, wait, did this even go out? Like clearly the way I have mine set up on my FFT, you can see that my signal went out every time. I mean, it was never reduced in strength, but the AI, you can see that it was moving. You can see that it was moving around in my environment using the null steering, using null steering or destructive interference is what that's called when they null steer and use, use destructive interference along with constructive interference to show, they can dominate, full spectrum, like negative floor and positive floor of the spectrum. So you can see how it moves around and it was learning my system. Like, how can I learn how this works? And you can see it just notched out the skirt. And so I mean, if this isn't obvious to you that we're dealing with AI, then I don't know what else to tell you. Like, this is just, it's a very sophisticated AI signals system. And I mean, if this isn't obvious that I've proven that there's constructive and destructive interference, that I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, just by this video analysis alone, you should be able to know that this system uses constructive and destructive interference in the signal environment. And from the Muse data that was in the little snippet of the zoom cutout in the top right when I'm doing the beamforming experiment, you can see that it's broadcasting synthetic brainwaves. So you can see that this is proof of the system. So I'm going to continue my research, and I hope this helps. If anybody else is researching the system, I hope this helps in how you want to continue your research. Bye, guys.